Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a great show. I've been excited about actually having this guest on for a few months just because of his incredible and miraculous story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but we're going to be talking about his book, Supercharged Self-Healing, a revolutionary guide to access high-frequency states of consciousness that rejuvenate and repair. And let me just tell you a little bit about RJ. He's devoted his life to teaching people how to raise their frequency, improve the quality of their life, heal themselves, and experience the blissful state of truly being free. He'd spent the better part of his life exploring profound metaphysical truths through his own inner consciousness exploration, but it was waking up from emergency life-saving surgery, still permanently paralyzed from the chest down paralysis that awakened him to the highest truth he'd ever encountered. He could heal himself and walk again, and it was something that he instantaneously knew. And I'm going to read you a quote here that is in his book that I just thought was very, very, very profound, because he basically says, "My body was destroyed, but I was free. It was if my old operating system awareness had been replaced with greatly enhanced model with far greater receptivity, bandwidth, and processing ability. I knew immediately and precisely how I would heal myself. I was at a state of grace and cosmic consciousness. I was truly free." And I think that is a very profound statement. So I'm going to bring RJ on the line, and everybody, this is going to stay tuned. It's going to be some great information tonight. RJ, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Jeremy?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's starting to cool off here in Florida, so that's a good thing. So, welcome to the show, and what a great, powerful story. That obviously you've been studying metaphysics for a while, and then in 2016, your life took a turn in a different direction, and so.
Yeah, it sure did. So it was, as odd as it sounds, when I was just a little kid, I actually used to say to my parents and my friends, if I ever get sick, I'll just heal myself, which is obviously an odd thing to say. And I think if anyone would have asked me, okay, RJ, how would you do that? I don't think I would have had an answer. So it was only until the need had arisen through my own state of being, my being permanently paralyzed from the chest down and diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism, thyroiditis, pancreatitis. I'm probably missing a few. Autonomic dysreflexia, which happens to spinal injuries above T6. My major injury was T7 and T8. And that's when the autonomic system no longer runs on automatic pilot. Your breathing, your body temperature, your heart rate, your pulse, those things go absolutely haywire. And excuse me, a lot of paraplegics or quadriplegics actually die from complications of those things. So there was a lot to work on. I accepted the challenge wholeheartedly. And it's true that upon awakening from emergency surgery, there was a different state of awareness or knowingness. I had always felt that I had the ability to heal and to heal myself. I didn't know how to bring it out. It's like it wasn't time. Clearly, it wasn't time, but it was time in April 23rd, 2016, because my body was literally beyond repair. And upon waking, it was the only way to describe it. It was a remembering. Everything that I felt that was in me that I probably could not have brought out when I was a kid, it all just came to the surface, and I immediately knew. And as strange as it sounds, I told the ICU nurse, I told the surgeon, I told my doctor, I told the nurses, I told anybody who was around me at that time, that I spent a few months in the hospital rehab. But I explained in detail how I would do it. And I even said on the 100th day, I'll walk unassisted. And on the 100th day, I walked unassisted, and it's all documented. I made sure that everyone took videos in the hospital, because I knew no one would believe that this was possible, but I knew I was going to do it because I had access to a deeper, more profound and holistic understanding of what is and how self-healing and self-realization are based upon physics. And it's a repeatable, robust process. That's what I based the book upon.
Yeah, and let me just put it out there, everybody that's watching. He has a video that I'm going to be dropping in the comments of this show. That's roughly about 3 minutes long, and it documents literally. I mean, April is when you mentioned the surgery, and then I think it was like the end of, you were wiggling your toes very shortly after that, and then your feet. And so for a paraplegic, because they said he was going to be a paraplegic and he wouldn't be able to do anything, shouldn't have been able to do that. And by August, you were walking. Well,
Yeah, Jeremy, the healing was not linear. For the first 17 days, there was nothing, and I can remember vividly a couple of times the neurosurgeon coming in, like day 2, day 4, day 6, in the beginning, and I can remember him and his assistants and everyone standing at the foot of my bed, the hospital bed, and he would, grab my toes, and he would say, "Can you feel this?" No, the answer was no. And I could recall his energy, and his energy, I think it was about day 6 or day 8, that he was just kind of like, this is just how it is. You're just, you're not going to be able to recover because you don't. So for the first 17 days, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, it was rapid. And I mean, really rapid. It didn't feel linear at all. And I'm glad there's that video there. So you can see it. It's time stamped. You can see me unparalyzing myself, so to speak.
That's incredible. Well, you say some really strong things, and I've actually put some of them here and as banners up, because my one of my favorite ones I'm going to put up here is, rather than doubting, you can marry yourself to the vibration of victory already within you, which most people, if they were in this situation, or even down to the smallest situations, they are already in doubt. And you mentioned in the book to, I'm going to probably use the wrong words here, to eliminate doubt, which most people would say is very challenging and hard. And so how would you do that? Like, you give practices in the book. I'm not going to talk about all, but I imagine you can give some.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jeremy, and it seems unusual, like, to be able to eliminate doubt, but I would say that this is actually our natural state. Okay, our natural state, believe it or not, is not to think, is to be present, which provides total clarity mentally and emotional stability. And what actually occurs when we're actually being in our natural state is all the energy has dropped down out of the mental body and out of the emotional body, and it rests just below the belly button and above the groin. And so when we are fully present in our natural state, metaphysically, that's actually what's going on with our energy. And so if that's maintained, so to speak, and you can think of that as meditation if you like, but it's actually our natural state. If that's maintained, if there's no energy going up into the head, the mind, or the mental body, so to speak, will simply doubt, because that's what it does, because it's sort of a reactionary state in fear. So when we're fully present, the energy sits down below, and I was able to work with my energy in a way that it would never go up into my head. I was commanding my energy all the time. And so there was literally, as odd as it sounds, there wasn't a single thought, not one, or a doubt that I wouldn't be able to achieve what it is that I set forth to do.
So the question, do you think that well, obviously at a young age, your soul just knew, this was going to happen to you, but just because of what you mentioned as a child. What I've found even in my own practice is through my own practice and my own healing work, eventually the doubt's just gone. Not to say that I don't have doubt in other areas of my life, because, maybe I haven't worked in that area, but there's just certain areas, I guess, because of practice, that I just have no doubt,
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jeremy. Once there's sort of a tangible knowingness, and that's important, those two words, tangible knowingness, which has nothing to do with thinking. Okay, knowingness is what exists prior to thought. And I know we have this backwards as human beings, but the knowingness is already within you. The knowingness is part of the self, or the sentience, or what most people refer to as the soul. That's where all the wisdom and love and talent ability resides. So it's already within you. The knowingness is already within you. And so if you stay within the self, and you can think of it as meditation, there is no doubt. And so there's actually, believe it or not, there's no thought. There's just creativity, which is not thought. And you've already experienced this yourself when you're doing your work, Jeremy. So there is a way, and that's what the book teaches you how to do. It's quite easy, believe it or not. These exercises and protocols are quite easy. It's just that we've been so conditioned to think that all of these things are impossible. But that is just mental conditioning. It has nothing to do with what is.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the book. You even talk about how in our life we've been given those conditions make us mimic, and the human condition is just mimicking. Like I think you give the analogy of becoming I believe an acupuncturist, and you're just going to be mimicking what has been done before, or what you've taught and doing it over and over again, as opposed to what your soul or whatever you want to refer higher self already knows that you are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're in a reactionary paradigm. So it's basically what the five senses perceive and then identify the self with. And so those become our limitations. And I call the ego mind identity a limitation program that runs by thinking. And so if there's no thought, and all thought is in context to a belief, concept, or ideology. So you can't even think without there first being a belief, thought, or concept. So this is very important to understand. So what I like to say is we cannot think outside the box. We have to remove the box. And once the box is removed, there literally is no limitations, because the conditioning about what we've been told is possible through beliefs, concepts, and ideologies is gone. And so once you have removed the box, there is no limitation. So I was told, obviously, I was told what I was going to do or trying to do. It's absolutely impossible. Not just the paralysis, but how sick I was. So I didn't identify with anything that was being said. So therefore, I was free, totally free, to recreate my reality and recreate my body through the steps of the Ascend the Frequencies healing technique, which is the foundation of the book.
Well, of course, and one of the things that's interesting too is that all those doubts from the doctors or friends or loving people that think that they're doing something loving, we could, obviously you didn't, allow those thoughts to infect your mind, because they're running off of their mimicking or their programming, whatever we want to refer to it as. Even people talk about TV. People say when you watch TV, you're watching programming. So, but you could have allowed that to infect your mind, and it would have changed things for you, or at least affected it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I did, I mean, I went about the whole thing differently, obviously, and I got completely different results. What a coincidence, right? So the identification with things was gone for me. I no longer identified with anything. I was simply present. And I had the tangible experience of my own authentic cosmic consciousness. So there was no reason for me to identify with anything that was being presented on the screen of my consciousness, because I was the one that was projecting the screen of my consciousness. I was in complete control of myself in every aspect. And so one of the things that I did to make sure that I could follow through on what my intention was, which was to walk and heal myself, is that I told all my family, friends, everybody, I sent out one sort of mass email. And I said that you've probably heard I'm sick. I said, don't worry about it. I'm going to be fine. But please understand that I'm not going to be responding to phone calls, emails, or texts. I have to completely and supremely focus on my task at hand. And when I am ready, I will contact you. And I'm sure you respect my wishes. God bless you all. And I'll contact you when I'm ready. And so this also freed me up, Jeremy. So now I didn't have my energy being spent talking to well-meaning friends and family. What was the surgery like? What is the prognosis like? What antibiotics are you on? Are you ever going to be able to do that? This was a waste of my energy. I would not have had enough energy in order to heal myself if I kept spending my energy explaining things. And so I was well aware of that. So I set that ground rule in place right away. And for anyone, for anyone who has a task in terms of their own self-healing, okay? And I'm sure many people that are going to be listening are probably tasked with some sort of issue that they need to overcome. It's very important that you harness your energy properly. And it's just like if your goal for the day, so to speak, is to go to the store, go grocery shopping. So you got to go grocery shopping, and you only have so much gas in the gas tank. You would not then say, oh, let me go to the post office first. Oh, let me go visit my friend first. Oh, let me go to the bookstore first. Before you know it, you don't even have enough gas in the gas tank to go to the store, which was your original intention. So I made sure that I had a full gas tank because I wasn't spending it in any other way, and that my energy was supremely focused on the task at hand, which was to walk and heal myself.
That actually makes so much sense, because think about all the times where people have cancer, or they have heart attacks, or they have anything that's going on in their life, or even not even health, they lose their job or everything else, and then everybody's calling them, apologizing to them, and concerned, and I'll give you an example of that. Is I had COVID in August, and I didn't actually answer the phone for anybody. And the reason being is because I didn't want to hear any of the people's belief systems, for one thing. I didn't want to hear all the fear from them, even if it was well-meaning. I just wanted to focus in on me. And at that moment, that was the universe source saying, hey, knucklehead, it's time for you to focus in on yourself. And I found it to be a blessing. Most people would think I was crazy, but I thought it was a blessing in the long run.
And Jeremy, yeah, and you found out that by doing this is incredibly self-empowering. Mm-hmm. And so by having all of your energy, okay, energy is power, okay? And we get our energy through detachment, which again, we're taught the opposite of this, okay? But metaphysically, energy, you get your energy back when you detach from things. So when you're attached to something, a person, and it doesn't matter what the attachment is to. It can be to a belief, to a relationship, to whatever it is. It makes no difference. So you can think of identifications or attachments of kind of like Spider-Man shooting his spider web. It's a ridiculous analogy, but I like ridiculous analogies. So if you shoot, when Spider-Man shoots the spider web to something, right? He's now attached to that thing that his web is attached to. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when we're attached to something, we identify with something. We are literally using our energy to be attached. Now, once we're attached to this person or this thing, we no longer have control over our life. That thing now has control over our life. So whatever happens with that thing, that person, that belief, that is what's in control of our life. And we're using our energy to be attached to it. Now, the opposite of this is to detach. And when you detach, what happens? All your energy returns to you. This is power. So I want everyone to understand, excuse me, I'm sorry. I want everyone to understand without a doubt that detachment is power, because you get all your energy back. And once you have your energy back, now you have the power to follow through on your intentionality. So whatever your intentionality is, whether that's to heal, to create a business, doesn't matter what it is. It's through detachment you gain your energy. Your energy is power. And now you can follow through and create the life that you want.
That's some big stuff. And it's one thing, I think you mentioned that detaching yourself from the five senses, I believe, in the book as well. I'm assuming that you're still living whatever life you're living, but you're just detached to the outcome. And I think some people would say that living in the now of the moment, as opposed to your attachment to other people. But you say something also really cool, and I never heard of this before, and is that our cells regenerate every 7 years. And then you kind of go into the analogy of you're leading into it of not being attached to illness, I believe. And I thought that was in basically getting rid of the program or attachment to illness, I think is kind of where you were going with that. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read that, but I thought that was just, I was like, never even thought about that. Letting go of the program of illness.
Yeah, that's right, Jimmy. There's our when we get a cut, right, it scabs over, right? Our body is literally designed with a program of self-repair and self-healing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if we let the body do what it naturally wants to do, healing and self-repair is already built into it. The real problem is that we keep feeding it with a contradictory electrical impulse called doubt. That's number one. So now the body can't work in the way that it was designed to, because we're telling it a different story. So that's really important to understand. So the program of illness, right? Just like a program on your computer, it's not native to your computer, right? We download programs. Okay.
Right.
So through our own ego mind identity, we are identifying with beliefs, concepts, and ideologies. Okay, those are not native to you. You are identifying those and then downloading them mentally, we could say, right? Just like your computer, the more programs that you download on your computer, the slower it runs. It starts to not be effective at all. And then pretty soon it's filled with viruses and it doesn't work at all. So the human body is much like a biological computer. So the key is to not download more and more programs, more and more identifications. The key is to reside within the self, what we talked about before, sort of this mental clarity and emotional balance, right? Now we can start to work with ourselves in any way that we want, right? We can literally create or recreate or bring about the health that's already within us by not sending contradictory electrical impulses called doubt, beliefs, concepts, ideologies. That's what throws off the body. The body was designed with perfection, okay? These are the things that we have downloaded and gotten accustomed to through the human condition, but it is not our natural state, and it is returning to our natural state that actually is the remedy for all that ails us.
I imagine too, like I've heard people tell me, and I've worked with people where they're so focused in on, let's say I have whatever, you mentioned type 2 diabetes in your diagnosis. So a type 2 diabetic is going to focus so heavily on healing themselves with type 2 diabetes, it becomes just an attachment of that pursuit. And I imagine that almost concretes, because then their mind gets into worry, it gets into uncertainty, it gets into living in the future as opposed to what's going on right now. I imagine that almost perpetuates instead of what you're talking about and detaching to allow the cosmic energy or consciousness to put you back into, not necessarily heal, because heal's another program, but actually go into your perfect self.
Yeah. So that's right, Jeremy. So it's identification. We're not the body. Okay. So how I phrased it, and this might be helpful. So I said at the height of all of this, right, which is about 6 years ago at this point, I guess, how I would verbalize it if I needed to, I would actually say I'm experiencing temporary paralysis. And I would also say that I was diagnosed with diabetes, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto. So that language is very important. Okay. There's no identification with those things. Okay. Temporary is how I described the paralysis. Temporary, something that will pass. And then I was diagnosed with, not I'm.
Oh, yeah, because you're not saying that I am a diabetic. I am, or I have.
That's right. So it was all outside of me. This language is very important. It may seem like, oh, that's the same as, it's not. Okay. There is a level of detachment with all those things that I just said. This is super important because there has to be a detachment from the self, the soul, whatever word you want to use. There has to be a detachment from that and the body. Okay. Because once there's detachment, there's some space. And now we have room to operate. We need to create a little space. But if you see it as all you, how can you transcend what you're carrying around? You can't. So in order to transmute and transcend, there has to be a certain level of detachment and space to be able to work. Now, for me, I cheated. My body didn't work and I couldn't feel it. So it was really easy for me to detach from my body because I literally couldn't feel it and there was literally no functionality with it. But these are all things that I really experienced and knew even as a child. This was just a tangible experience of being completely disconnected from the body, even while in it. And so I gifted myself that experience, as strange as that sounds. I gifted myself that experience because I knew that I was going to be able to heal myself. I needed a challenge. And this was a great challenge, and I accepted it wholeheartedly. But because I had that level of detachment, and please understand how important this is, you have to have some detachment to create some space so you can do some work. And someone who does any kind of energy healing, like yourself, Jeremy, whether it's Reiki, doesn't matter what kind of energy healing, it makes no difference. All healing is energy healing, by the way. But some is more direct and more powerful. Once you have that space, now you can work. Now you can create. Now you can heal. Now you can liberate, right? So the space is the key. The detachment is the key.
Yeah, because you mentioned in the book too that energy, the body is energy, and then and the cells within your body are intelligent. You know, they're really consciousness. And so if it's intelligent, then it accepts whatever programming or BS that we give it.
Yeah, Jeremy, that's right. So what I like to say is whatever conceptualized reality that we create for ourselves, our body then has the tangible experience of that. Okay, so that's the whole mind-body connection in one sentence. Okay, that's very important to understand. So if we want to free ourselves, heal ourselves, liberate ourselves, right? There can be no conceptualized reality. None. And that's why I say don't think outside the box. Remove the box. This is the key. This is the end. You only can do that through detachment. Detachment from beliefs, concepts, ideologies, so-called knowledge, which is simply justified beliefs, by the way. And then once you separate yourself from that, you actually reside within the self. Once you reside within the self, use the steps in that book to free yourself. Use the steps in that book to heal yourself. Use the steps in that book to liberate yourself. Use my incarnation right now to heal yourself and liberate yourself. It is available now, and everyone can do it. It's your destiny, and it is your right to do so.
That's beautiful. And I just want to put out, everybody, his website is up here on the screen, ascendthefrequencies.com, and we are talking about his book, SuperCharged Self-Healing, a revolutionary guide to access high-frequency state of consciousness and rejuvenate and repair. And I mean, what an incredible story. I mean, I've talked to many people on this, almost 10 years I've been doing this show, about their healing. And I don't think, and I've had friends that were paraplegic and quadriplegic, actually. You know, if I would have known the things that I know now, you know, maybe there would have been different. Of course, everybody has their own journey. And, but I mean, this is something that, especially in these times, over the last 2 years, I mean, these are things that can be applied in all avenues of your life. And for you guys to know, he does talk about how to do this in the book. Exactly what he knew in that moment of how he was going to heal himself. He talks about it in the book, so you can actually apply this in your own life. So,
yeah, Jared. Just to add, what I reduced it down to is essentially, excuse me, 7, we could say, main things that I did really in a perpetual fashion. So I kind of never broke from doing these things repeatedly. I was almost in like a constant, you could call it trance, but it wasn't a trance. I was completely tuned in. I wasn't tuned out. So all I did was these things over and over again because I knew what I was doing and I could feel it. And one thing that might not, I don't even remember if this was in the book or got taken out, because I lived in hospital rehab for, you know, almost 3 months, a little less. But because I was working on myself perpetually, literally perpetually, I was creating such a high frequency environment all around me. It wasn't just my body, it was my body of energy, and it actually extended outward. So it extended outward. It was the entire room was like almost literally like a different frequency. And it was tangible. And it was so tangible. And we can all do this. The book teaches you how to do this. It was so tangible that some of the nurses would knock on my door and, you know, tell them come in, and they're like, RJ, do you mind if I eat my lunch in here? I won't say anything and I won't bother you. It just feels so good to be in this room. Is that okay if I just sit silently? So this is the power that we all have. Okay? We are destined to work in this way. And some of you are ready to start to work in this way. Don't hold yourself back. The time is now.
Absolutely. That's great, because you were probably healing them, or at least you're giving them peace. And the nurses have such a hard job anyways. So I know I was raised by one. So very, very cool. Well, everybody check out his book. I'm assuming it's on Amazon. Check it out at his website. And I'm assuming it's also at the publisher's website, Llewellyn. And so you can check it out and purchase it there. Definitely, this is a book I would get, and to help you in your own healing for everybody out there. Lots of great shows coming up. I have Amit Goswami coming on in a couple weeks, and so that should be, he'll be probably his third or fourth time on the show, but he's always a great guest to have. And RJ, definitely would look forward to you being on the show in the future. And so much love, everybody. And as always, this show will be on the LA Tribune's Roku TV network in a couple days. Also, you'll be able to check it out at my YouTube channel or my Facebook page. So much love, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy.